3 semesters, so more than a year. So it has been more than a year than all of us have to teach online. So if you are like me, you're pretty bored with it, and you are waiting for only one thing, is to go back to the classroom and teach our students normally. So if you are tired of it, just think about what the students are experiencing right now, having to follow all their lectures essentially online. So as I was preparing this talk this morning, I actually stumbled upon this term, which is known as Zoom fatigue. So, and as you can see from the amount of Google hits, so 35 million, it's clearly a syndrome that a lot of us are feeling at the moment. So what I would like to do in this short presentation is actually explain you how we evolved our online offering and our online setup over these last 3 semesters. And I'm actually using this setup right now just to kind of like eat my own dog food and kind of like show you how it actually looks like on the fly. So just to give you a little bit of context, I've been teaching now 4 lectures online over these last 3 semesters. And the main lecture or flagship lecture, if you wish, is the Introduction to Communication Networks, which is our largest lecture with more or less 150 students, which is happening in the spring. So that lecture was directly impacted last year, as it was the first time I had to switch to an online setting. So it was a hybrid lecture, started in the classroom and then switched to online, purely online after. While the remaining 3 lectures, including again like communication networks this semester, have been studied as online lectures since the beginning. So as I said, we have worked a lot together also with my team on improving how we give lectures online. You can see here a little bit of an impression of the evolutions of our setup over each semester, starting from spring 2020 over here up to spring 21 with the latest iteration of the setup. So what I would like to do is just also explain a little bit our reasoning and why we ended up doing things the way we did, and hopefully inspire you perhaps to try some bits of it in your own teaching. Hopefully only for this semester, but also perhaps more in general for like video in the future. So first in the spring 2020, so last year, we essentially learned what we shouldn't do. So I was a little bit naive back then, and I thought I will kind of like just reuse the old recordings we had. So we have been recording our lectures for a while, since I've joined ETH actually, using the multimedia service recordings. So these are the recordings you have in the lecture halls, where only the video output of your laptop is recorded and your voice. So there is no video recording of the professor or anything Blackboard, at least not in the lecture hall I was in. So I thought at the beginning, hopefully it's only for a couple of weeks. So why don't we just like give a link to the previous year's video, and then the students can just watch this. So of course, this was highly suboptimal to do that. And we were lucky enough to realize this early on. And why was it suboptimal? Well, it's because students couldn't see me anymore because I wasn't anywhere in the recording. So that means that all the non-verbal communication was completely gone. Students also couldn't see what I was pointing at on the slide, which I'm doing a lot in my lecture. And also, more importantly, students couldn't interact. They couldn't like ask questions or like make comment about the topics. And the reason why we realized this early on, and this is an advice I would give everyone here to try to do in your own lecture, is to actually run a midterm survey, which we do every year now, so that we can actually improve the lectures in the remaining half of the semester, instead of having only one survey at the very end, and then you can only improve for the next iteration. So in that survey, the feedback from the students was overwhelmingly in favor of like going back to live teaching, in this case over Zoom, which is exactly what we did. So and by the way, this is a few of the questions we ask the students. Are you satisfied with the lecture? What is it that you do not like? And any ideas how we could improve forward. So we did that. We kind of like switched all the way to Zoom-based lecture, but we use only the default setting in Zoom. So there was no fanciness, really only default what Zoom offers. So essentially it looks something like that. You had like the default slide with me like tiny all the way up there. You couldn't see much of what I was saying anyway, because it was so badly scaled, and also essentially the lighting and the setup of my video webcam was completely suboptimal. So I was too tiny, the lighting was poor, so the light was coming from my back, so you couldn't see my face anymore. And also, as and this is one of the plague, I think, of Zoom these days, the backgrounds are way too distracting. And so people were actually looking more at the background instead of looking at me and what I'm saying, essentially listen to what I'm saying. So also, there was no body language, almost nothing, and the facial expression was also not there. So that was step one, learning from, let's say, a suboptimal setup, but still the students appreciated, of course, that we did that. So they told us after that the switch to Zoom was highly appreciated. So again, like they really also valued the fact that we listened to them and their feedback, and that we did something, we just didn't just not listen. So of course, I was hoping it was only for one semester. So when the fourth semester started and it was again online, I thought, okay, I should try at least to do something better than the default Zoom setting. And so this is where I actually started to learn from communication expert. And here I would highly recommend all the viewers here to check out Jean-Luc Dumont resources, who is an expert in communication. And in July 2020, Jean-Luc gave a talk on how to deliver your presentation remotely. And Jean-Luc really hit the nail exactly right in highlighting the problems really that we have when we teach online. And the fact that essentially there are two main drawbacks. The first one is that we kind of, us as speakers, as teachers, we lose all the controls over the setting of our viewers, right? So in the classroom, when I want the students to look at the slides, I can show them the slides. So I can look at the student face and I know the ones who are not perhaps paying attention, I can bring them back. Of course, in Zoom, you do not know what is going on here on the receiving front. So that means that they can only have the slides on, only have you on, any kind of like hybrid form in between. So you're not in control, you do not know at all what is it that they see. Also, depending on what is it that they see, you may actually lose a lot of the nonverbal communication, which is so important again in the presentation. A good presentation, I think also good teaching. So Jean-Luc in his handout, by the way, which is freely available online. So there is a link here in the PDF that we released, but we can also put it on the website, I guess. But Jean-Luc is also proposing an alternative here, which is that instead of using the default Zoom setup, which is the one that we use without doing anything, you could just do one simple change, which is you either show yourself full screen or you show your slides full screen, and then you alternate in between the two. And at least you are in control now of what you are showing to the student, because when you are full screen, they cannot look at anything else. And when the slides are full screen, they cannot start looking at your background, for instance. So you are again in control of what is it that they see. And when you are full screen, you also have like the full picture, and then you can use body language as well. So he's arguing in his presentation to kind of like switch between two views, like you full screen and slides full screen. So in the fall, I decided to give that a shot. So I switched the setup. It wasn't too hard. So you can definitely do that already today without investing anything, right? It's really just software configuration. And I did exactly that. I was alternating between myself full screen and the slide full screen. And I was actually reconfiguring my remote here so that on using a click of a button, I could switch easily between the two. And the feedback from the student was, again, like overwhelming positive. They really liked that. So it showed that it was really working. And you can see here a few of the student feedback that we received back then. So that was pretty good. And so I thought, okay, I will continue to do that. But then at the same time, I was feeling a little bit frustrated by some aspect. Like, for instance, I didn't know most of the time when it was a good moment to switch to me full screen. So the transitions, they really have to be prepared in advance. And I think it is okay when you do a short presentation like I'm doing now, but when you're teaching for 1.5 hours, it's actually quite hard to figure out when is the good time to switch from one to the other. So I thought it was a little bit suboptimal. At the same time, since I was seeing that the situation is likely, unfortunately, to continue, I thought it would be good to kind of like go to the next step now and really start to actually be inspired not only by communication expert, but also by, I think, the ones who are at the forefront of streaming technologies and streaming techniques, and it's actually the YouTubers. And so I started to look a little bit at the setting that these people were using, and that kind of like led to the third iteration of the setup, which is the one I'm using right now. So I just now would like to present for like 1 minute how it looks like, and why I think it's actually a pretty good trade-off. You will see it's pretty involved, but again, you can reach 80% of the benefit with only 20% of the effort I've put in. So essentially behind me I have a green screen, which you probably have guessed. And in front of me I have a bunch of lights, studio lights, and also just normal desk lamps, just to light up my face so that people can hopefully see me the best way possible. I've invested in a good microphone as well, so that the audio quality is I hope the best possible. I'm using a tablet as well on top of everything, so that I can also simulate me writing on the blackboard. And I'm using this clicker right here to just switch from one slide to another. Of course, it's very important to have like a good camera, so webcam, or like in my case, I'm using a decent camera, which happens to be my camera in this case. So as I said, this is fancy setup, I realize this, but you really can reach like 80% of the benefit with really a simple setup. So that's what I started with. I started with like an IKEA bedsheet that I had at my place, which happened to be green, and like a normal webcam. And it was already pretty good. I think the students already like were telling me it's much better than before. So of course you need a little bit of software. I happen to be on the Mac, so it's essentially really relevant to Mac users here. But I'm using OBS, which is a well-known streaming platform that blends multiple video feeds together. And then I'm also using a software to delay the audio feed and the video feed, hopefully then, so that it stays in sync. So just like the multiple video feeds, I've used them already in this presentation, but there is like me full screen, the slide full screen, me plus the slides, and then also the tablet. And the cool thing is that I can switch between the scene with just a click of a button, as you can see. And here I have the tablet, and I can also just draw normally. So that's already kind of like it, and what I would like to what I wanted to show you, and what I would like to finish with is a few lessons I've learned over now the last 3 semesters. So the first one is that teaching online is really tiring. It's way more tiring than teaching in the classroom. So I'm usually completely wasted at the end of a lecture. So it's important really to fuel properly. Another thing, and that's something I'm really paying a lot of attention to at this very moment, is really to look straight into the camera at all time. And that enables you to retrieve a little bit of the eye contact. And I think that helps with student engagement as well, because they don't see you looking down on your keyboard or like looking somewhere else on the screen. You are looking them straight in the eyes. And here, in order to remember to do that, and this is why there is a smiley face on my camera, I've put that there. That was a tip from Jean-Luc as well, so that then it reminds you always to look at the camera, like in the TV studio, essentially. One other thing is that reading from a script does not work at all for me. I found it too robotic, and when I'm in the crowd and looking at the conference presentation, and I see people reading from a script, I usually find it very boring, so I tend to tune out almost immediately. So I only reuse the very beginning of the lecture, and then I go with the flow. I make mistakes. I've made mistakes in this presentation, but I think it makes the entire thing more human, and also helps with the engagement. I think also, and I only have one more point, is that knowing how to stream, or only knowing how to make good videos, I think it's excellent skills to have. And just to give you 2 examples of things that go beyond the classroom, one of my students, doctoral students, applying for faculty position, and she was able to use my setup for giving her talk online, unfortunately. And that actually helped her a lot, because it gave her an edge over the other candidates, which use just the default Zoom setup. Other of my students now are also using that to give like their conference presentation. And now we are thinking about, in the future, post-COVID as well, also using the video medium much more. And also just I had a lot of fun learning about this. So I really didn't think back then that I would ever know how to stream videos, but it was actually a fun process and I enjoyed it. So with this, I'm happy to take a few questions. Hopefully we have time for that. And feel free to reach out also by email or offline if you have like any more detailed questions. Happy to share also how we do things a little bit more.
So thank you very much, Laurent. That was such an excellent presentation, because you were showing us how you do it at the same time as telling us how it happened. And I think that's a really great way to illustrate it. So I'm sure there will be some questions. If people want to put their hands up in front of by their names, we could go with that, or we could have some questions via the chat. So perhaps the best thing is that I was going to say you stop sharing your screen, but
yeah, then you don't see me anymore. But
yeah, that's the problem. That is the problem.
Yes.
So,
but I can do it if you want. Do you want me to stop sharing?
No, it's okay. I think you can. We
yes,
can
it's
talk
fine.
to you like this.
So, any questions?
I would have one question. Arise for me is there is a short like delay in hearing you and seeing your gesture and mouth. Is that something? It's like 2 seconds, I think.
So okay, so it's why I'm using this piece of software to try to fix that. The issue is that it depends a lot on like the network connectivity. It depends also on the load on my laptop. So this is something which is a little bit tough to kind of like have one setting for everyone. Usually though it works, so I hope it was not the case for everyone else, that there was this delay. But what I'm doing as well in any case is that I'm post-processing the video. And then if there is a delay, which sometimes happens for not 2 seconds, but perhaps like 250 milliseconds, I'm actually editing this after post-processing and then putting the video online with the right lip sync. Typically what I'm doing in a 1.5-hour lecture as well is that I let the student, of course, they can give me feedback through the chat. And if there is a delay, I can really easily adjust that. Of course, for like a 15-minute talk, this is hard and you didn't know about it, but the students know they're pretty much aware of that. And that's something also I can tweak really on the fly. So yeah, but it's annoying when this happens. So I'm sorry if it was the case.
So thank you very much, Laurent. We have a question from Liliana Duarte. She's put her hand up.
Nice presentation and nice tips. I really appreciate. And the thing that I want just to ask you, it's also tips to engage the students, or the most difficult thing is really to engage them. And sometimes they have off cameras, and even that you ask, they switch on and they switch off. But it's like you said, like physical lectures, it's okay because you can see what is going on in the classroom. But when you are, you cannot really see all the faces on, even if you see the faces or you see just maybe a picture. How can, or do you have some tips?
Yeah, so I do. Of course, it works well in my lecture because of the type of lecture I'm teaching. But I'm trying to kind of like create mini breaks in the lecture. So for instance, I'm teaching internet technology. So how does the internet work? So I can make a lot of demonstrations during the lecture to kind of like break the monotonous flow otherwise of like just me speaking. So that helps with engagement because whenever I'm doing a demo, like I don't know, I show them how YouTube works behind the scene, for instance, I immediately have a lot of questions because it's something concrete then that they see, oh, cool, I have this and that question. So that is one tip I have. Another one is that I'm trying, but I should use that even more because the students are asking for it as well. But I'm trying to use this polls and this kind of like way to probe the students. It requires a little bit of preparation, which is always a problem because of time pressure. But I'm trying to do that as well. We also use on the side, that's something I didn't mention, but we are also using a Slack. Like a chat room, essentially, where the students are online and can discuss with each other in addition to the Zoom chat. So that helps a little bit. And something I thought was good for me, and that's something we do now in all our lectures, is that there is always a TA with me in the Zoom room, and the TA is monitoring the questions, and then can answer some of the questions directly. But they can also relay the question back to me. And that is good because it's very hard when you're presenting to also keep track of this. That's also distracting for the students if you keep like watching the chat all the time. But then with the TA in the loop, he or she can actually act as a relay. And then at least for us, that actually spurred a lot of questions now. So we actually have to filter them out a little bit more because otherwise the students, I would just keep answering questions all the time and then I'm too late in the materials. So that is something that works for us a little bit. Now, yeah, I mean, these are all tiny tips, but it will never be like normal lectures. I think you could imagine going way more fancier, and I think we will go there if we keep teaching online for much more time. Like for instance, like, I don't know, like tools that students could use on their smartphone to tell you in real time that they don't understand something, without asking necessarily a question. So these are just ideas right now, but they would require a lot of developments, which of course I did not have the time to do. So yeah, besides these few tips, that's all I have now, but at least they work for us. Hopefully some of them work for you as well.